Now, how much insurance should you have? Well, that's not for me to tell you how much insurance you should have. You should tell me that, well, I guess the answer to that is, what do you want to happen? If something tragic happens to you and you pass away, if you get sick, if you get into a car accident, if something really sad and unfortunate happens and you're not here, what do you want your loved ones to be left with? Hey, what's going on, cash flow hackers? It's Chris with Life 180, and for this video, I want to talk to you about something a little different than I normally do, and that is how important term life insurance is. I obviously, if you follow my channel, you know that I'm a big believer in permanent life insurance. I love whole life insurance when designed properly, and I get a lot of love for that, and I get a lot of hate for that as well, depending on who's coming at me and who I'm talking to, right? So that's a no-brainer. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there that really are into the buy term and invest the difference camp. That is not me. That is not the camp I'm in. However, I'd be remiss to not acknowledge that term life insurance is an extremely valuable tool when utilized properly. So what I want to do in this video is talk about the benefits of term insurance, the mindset behind term insurance when you're looking to buy it, and ultimately how how you can utilize term life insurance in your life, maybe some of the parameters that you need to be setting up around it, and ultimately the different types of term life insurance that are involved, right? So those are the things that I want to cover in this video. So let's get into this. Now, first and foremost, here's the one caveat that I want to say. I think one of the biggest mistakes that life insurance agents make across the board is selling life insurance on a need-based level, right? So what they do is they go out and they say, well, how much insurance do you need? And I think a lot of people, as soon as you have that conversation with them, the experience instantaneously becomes a commoditized experience. And I'm a big believer life insurance is never a need-based product, and it's always a want-based product, right? So for instance, if you're looking to buy insurance right now, my guess is you're here, you're watching this video, you're evaluating this because you're contemplating what is the right thing for you. Now, how much insurance should you have? Well, that's not for me to tell you how much insurance you should have. You should tell me that, well, I guess the answer to that is, what do you want to happen? If something tragic happens to you and you pass away, if you get sick, if you get into a car accident, if something really sad and unfortunate happens and you're not here, what do you want your loved ones to be left with, right? That's on you. Now, I will say that I think as providers, right, there's an element of responsibility here. So from that perspective, a lot of people would say, well, you need to have it, but there's so much judgment associated with me telling you what I think you need to have, right? I think you should come to the conclusion that whatever you're comfortable with, right? And so what I would encourage you to do is think about it like this. Take your income, take your spouse's income, take your lifestyle, figure out how much money your spouse would need to make sure that what you want to happen will happen if you're not here, right? Imagine what you wanted to happen, the lifestyle you wanted to provide, the college for your kids, whatever that all experience looks like for you. What do you want your family's life to look like? And then when you understand that, you can assign a value to it. And then you can reverse engineer that. And I think the biggest mistake people make is thinking oh, $250,000 will go a long ways, or $500,000 or $750,000 will go a long ways. But I got news for you. If you want to make sure that all of these things are taken care of for your family, you have to first and foremost think about the 4% rule and say, okay, $1 million of coverage is really going to get your spouse $40,000 a year. And I don't know about you, but my wife, with our 3 kids, $40,000 a year isn't going to do anything. Not for the lifestyle that we have, not for what we want to create for our children, the sports camps and the travel and all these different things that go along with raising 3 kids in today's day and age. It's pretty insane, right? And so for me, I'm a big believer, just once again, I'm not projecting anything on you. I'm just talking about me. I know that I need more life insurance to make sure that my family is taken care of, and that my wife, I never want to have to make a decision out of desperation because of money, because of my demise, right? And that is the biggest thing. So before you get into anything else, what I would encourage you to really think about is anybody that's trying to sell you life insurance based on what you need and telling you what you need based on a spreadsheet, I would encourage you to take a step back and really just evaluate what you think you want based on what you want to happen and how you want to be able to show up and what you want your legacy to look like with your family, right? That's the most important component. Now, once you understand that, now there's some other levels that we need to take into consideration. Now that we understand what the amount is, right? Because that's what will dictate what the amount of insurance is. Is it 1 million? Is it 3 million? Is it 5 billion? Whatever the amount is, that's irrelevant for this conversation, but you just come up to whatever that number is for you. Once you have that number in your head, now you can come to a conclusion of saying, what type of insurance do I want? Do I want 10-year term? Do I want 20-year term? Do I have enough money to afford more than that, right? Because if you can afford more than just term insurance, I'm a big believer that you should. Now, if you don't agree with me with that and you're just going for the biggest bang for your buck for the term insurance and you don't believe in permanent insurance, we'll agree to disagree. But what I will say is if that's you, then it's still, the principle says, okay, if you're going to buy term insurance, you want to make sure that your insurability is locked in. One of the biggest mistakes that I see people make is they go for the cheapest cheap of the cheap term, and those term policies have no additional benefits. And so what you want to make sure that you do is that you don't buy your term with a cheap discount company. You want to make sure that you buy your term insurance with a company that offers good convertible term insurance. And what do I mean by that? Convertible term is basically a product that says, okay, if you buy a term policy for 10 years, that's saying you have that insurance for 10 years. It's basically like leasing a car for 10 years. You have that car for 10 years and then it's gone. So you get to lease this insurance for 10 years. As long as you make your premium payments, you have this insurance. Now, at the end of 10 years, if you don't make that, or if at the end of 10 years, you run out of that policy, you have to re-up the insurance or it goes really expensive. Like usually even policies that stay in force on a 10-year term, after 10 years, the cost of the premium is going to start going up and up and up on a very, very catastrophic level, very prohibitive level for most people. So what I would suggest is figuring out first and foremost, how long do you need the insurance for, right? How long do you want it for? And is it 10 years? Is it 20 years? Is it 30 years? And then what I would do is I would look and I would find from a convertible term perspective, what that means is during the term that you have it, let's just call it 10 years, during any time in that term, you have the ability to convert that policy from a term policy to a permanent whole life policy whenever you want in increments. You can do small increments or you can do all of it at once. And the reason that's so important is because, like for me, I'm 42 years old, right? My best friend died a couple years ago. And he had this random heart condition, right? I remember he was 51 years old. I remember going up to Vegas and playing poker with him for his 50th birthday. We had a great time. We came back and like it was great. He was healthy. It seemed totally normal. I remember going out to dinner with him one day right after he turned 51, and he was telling me he didn't feel well. And I was like, man, it's just weird. He's like, man, I'm starting to just like sweats and like it was just nighttime is really rough. It's like, all right, man, like I'm sorry. And like, so the next day I met him up and he's like, it's still happening. Third day, it's still happening. He went to the doctors. They couldn't figure out what was going on. Turned out that he got a tooth infection. And that infection spread down to his heart. And he had to go in for what we thought was pretty run-of-the-mill aortic valve replacement, and long story short, he ended up passing away. He didn't die in the operation. He actually ended up having a lot of complications and having a rehab, and then he ended up dying of a brain bleed during rehab after the fact, which is just a complete tragedy. But here's the bottom line, and this is the point of my story, is if I'm buying this insurance right now, I feel healthy, I look healthy. He was completely healthy beforehand, right? I feel as good as I feel, but I don't know what's going to happen, right? So if I get sick, if I get cancer, I have cancer that runs in my family. My grandfather had testicular cancer when he was 36 years old. My grandfather died at 64 years old of multiple myeloma. There's a lot of things that we don't know that could come after us, right? It's one of those things, right? And so we don't know if anything is going to develop in us that's going to make it so we're uninsurable. And the bottom line is, after 10 years, I may want insurance. So what convertible life insurance does, convertible term insurance does for you, is it makes sure that 5-6 years from now, if something happens to me that makes me and renders me uninsurable, I can convert this term policy to a permanent policy without going through underwriting at all. So from that perspective, that's why I suggest to everybody, if you're gonna buy term, please, 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 please go buy convertible term insurance, because it's gonna be a little bit more expensive. It's not the cheap of the cheap, but I'm telling you, go out and do it. Now, that's all I have to say about that. I'm not gonna beat that one too hard. I mean, I think that story, if that doesn't resonate with you, I don't know what to tell you. You can go buy the cheap insurance and you just realize the risks that you're taking. That's all I can say. If you want to learn about the best convertible term options out there, you can email chris@life180.com. I'm happy to help you out and give you some guidance and connect you with some people, and we can go from there. But that's it. Now, the third is term insurance with living benefits. Now, these are few and far between. There's options out there. I've done this. One of the big things that I'm a big believer in, I kind of tell people about this, and if you watch any of my videos, you know how I feel about this, is I'm not a believer in Western world medicine. I'm a big believer in alternative treatments. I use my father-in-law's example of pancreatic cancer. He was diagnosed, given a 3-month death sentence back in November of 2020. He's still alive to this day when I'm filming this video at the beginning of May 2022, a year and a half later, and he's playing golf 4 days a week. And so he has never done chemo, he's never done radiation. We've treated it all with diet, nutrition, and alternative treatments, right? And so that is the biggest thing. And so the problem is those treatments are expensive, right? And so you need to make sure that you have a different form of coverage to be able to make sure that you can pay for those. So the beautiful part about life insurance, when you do it the right way, with permanent insurance, with whole life insurance, you can get what we call accelerated benefit riders, which are if you become critically, chronically, or terminally ill, if you get a diagnosis of terminal illness with a year of mortality or less, you can get access to a good portion of your death benefit while you're alive, and you can utilize that money for whatever you want. So all of a sudden, the death insurance can be the insurance that actually helps keep you alive, right? Like, that's really powerful. Now, that works with permanent insurance. You can get that with whole life insurance across the board. And once again, that's the importance of the convertibility into that. That way you can make sure that you lock that in, right? Now, the other component to this is looking at with term insurance, there are some opportunities, and the benefits aren't necessarily always as good, but at least you get something, right? So on top of the death benefit, you can get what we would call accelerated benefit riders while or on your term policy, right? And so it's not always available. It's based on age. It's based on health rating. It's a separate thing that you have to get underwritten for. And yes, it does add to the term policy price, but bang for bang, dollar for dollar kind of thing. It is an extremely, extremely valuable tool. So that's it. Like, listen, that's all I want to say is, like, if you think you want to get term insurance, I would say don't think about how much you need. Think about what you want life to look like in your demise, so to speak. Reverse engineer how much insurance you need from that perspective. You really have to think analytically about that. Make sure you get the convertible term insurance. And if you are thinking about needing an alternative form of payment for making sure that you are able to have extra money to handle any kind of critical, chronic, or terminal illness, it's there to help you. So that's it. If you have any questions, comment in the comment section below. I do my best to respond to every single one of them. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button, click the bell. That way you get notified every time I launch a new video. That's it. Until next video, have a blessed, inspirational day. We'll talk soon. See ya.